not in charge tonight.
Oh, who's in charge tonight? Oh, did you want to do anything first?
I wanted to introduce the fabulous Marsha May.
Marsha May. 10 months and 3 weeks. When I retire.
Oh, really?
Yes. I can't wait.
Not that you're counting.
I've been with the agency, well, in January it'd be 17 years. And, I mean, it's really been fun.
In January it'll be what?
17 years.
With Texas Parks and Wildlife?
Yeah, with Texas Parks and Wildlife. I have a long history before that. I actually started.
That's like long and
No. Yeah, I teach, I also, on the side, teach biology at a junior college at Hutto, Temple Junior College in Hutto. And I tell my students, it's night class and they're all older students, you know, and some of them are trying to come back to school, you know, and I told them, well, I started college in 1970 and I finished in 2003. I have 2 associate's degrees, a BS and a master's. Yeah, so, and I had a son in the middle of all that, family and all that too. But, yeah, and I'd still be going to school. I'd love to go back to school. School is fun. But teaching it is fun too, so that's good, that's pretty good. So, but ornithology, birds, I first got involved in just appreciating birds at the first community college I went to in Chicago. It's Southside Chicago, it's Moraine Valley Community College. And I was just taking classes there because I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life, you know, so I just started taking classes, you know, just trying to figure it out. And because I was like 18. And I had a biology instructor who took us on a field trip out to Jasper Pulaski Fish and Game Preserve, which is in Indiana. And it was in October, and it was the site of, it was one of the stopover sites for the lesser sandhill crane. And there were 3,000 birds there. And we got to see them fly over our heads into the marsh. And that was my wow moment. You know, I think some of us probably have our wow moment that made you realize that, okay, this is what I should be doing. And that was my wow moment. And then after that, for years, when I still lived in Illinois, I would drag all my friends up there. It gets pretty cold in October in Indiana. So sandhill cranes are my wow favorite bird, and always have been. Even though now I'm working quite a bit with hoopers, that's really fun. Hooping cranes. Yeah, which is really fun. But anyway, so ornithology is the study of birds. When I was at Southwest Texas, now Texas State, I was the TA for ornithology for 3 years. And if I tell the story over again, let me know. I never remember who I told what. But I was the TA for 3 years, and we would get up. I think I said this. I'd get up early in the morning and had to get the students out so we could hear the dawn chorus. And my instructor, oh my gosh, my brain just left me. What is his name? It'll come to me. Anyway, he was teaching the students how to bird by ear. And it was really fun. And I had already had experience with learning birding by ear, but he was just absolutely amazing. And so we had to be out for the dawn chorus, which how many of you know what a dawn chorus is? Yeah, it's like first thing in the morning when you go outside and the birds just start singing. Yeah, it's just absolutely, it's heavenly. You know, it's really a wonderful thing to hear. My brain's gone. So anyway, so the goals that are in your book, these are the goals that are in your book that you need to know. I mean, how much do y'all study the book? I was just curious. Do you actually use the book? Study the book? read it before a class or something, or?
Or after, yeah.
Huh?
Or after.
We'll read
class.
more.
Or after the class, okay. So anyway, yeah, so these are your goals. So I'm gonna kind of fit in some of the goals, and then I'm gonna fit in some personal stuff too, to add to it. So birds are, they're one of those species that is a connection to nature. And it seems like that if you want to get somebody really interested in nature, birds is one of the best ways to do it. Because they're so fascinating. They're so colorful, they sound beautiful, they have interesting behavior, and they're like the drug, the drug that gets you into, nature. Gateway drug, yeah, of getting you into nature. So, you read the chapter. So anyway, it's a great way to get started. Because I know, with Travis Audubon, I was I'm a board member for 7 years, I was president for 2, and just, you go out birding with those folks, that's a great way to learn, is to go out and actually go out with birders, because they love to teach, and I've learned so much just by going out. After a while, they're looking at birds, and then they're looking at plants, and then they're looking at butterflies, and they're looking so it kind of expands into other organisms too. And how many of you lived in Austin for 30 years or so? Okay, there was a guy who used to live here, Ed Kutek. Do you remember Ed Kutek? He probably left in the 90s, I think, didn't he? So I took his classes in the 80s, and I think somewhere around the 90s, he retired and his daughter was living in Amarillo, so he moved up to Amarillo and lived there. But he taught birding classes here in Austin. Every season, we have a birding class. And that's where I started. And I just took his class. He couldn't hear, so he wasn't very good at teaching how to bird by ear. But he was great at teaching you how to bird by field marks. And that's one of the things you look for is field marks. He was fabulous at field marks, because he, like the red-headed woodpecker was, the red is red, the black is black, and the white is white. So they're very distinctive woodpeckers that are black, red, and white. There's no gray, there's no pink, and so anyway, he passed away a few years ago, but his sister's still here, Ethel Kutek. So anyway, I can remember their names. So anyway, so birding is, it has a big history, and your book talks about it, from falconry, like what was it, 2000 BC, they're using birds of prey as a tool for hunting, and so so there's been many different uses for birds. Say birds in history, the sailors actually used them to find land. Even when they got close to land, when they saw birds that were land birds, they knew they were getting close. And Native Americans used them to find water and hunting, and the Aztecs used them for headgear. And this is the headgear of, it's probably like Montezuma, don't you think? Or Montezuma, whatever his name is, but this was the headgear of the chief, and made of the feathers from the resplendent quetzal. That is my absolute favorite bird in the whole wide world. I love the sandhill cranes, but this is the most amazing looking bird that you could ever see. I got to see them in Costa Rica. And it was really funny because we spent all day looking for these birds, and we saw a couple, we saw a female, we saw one male, and not much, and then we walked back to the parking lot. This one male, beautiful male, flew right across the parking lot and landed. You're in the woods all day trying to find these birds. There he is in the parking lot. But they have just beautiful beautiful tail, long, long green tail feathers, just emerald green, beautiful, beautiful birds. So that really was one of my goal birds for many, 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 many years to see. And of course, pets. I've had birds for pets, but I'm just not, they really take a lot of work. I don't know if any of you have ever had a bird for a pet, but some of them, like the cockatoo, they're colony birds, and so they have to live with other birds, or if they've decided you're the other bird, they have to be with you all the time. If you leave them alone, they start with feather picking. They pick off all their feathers, and they get neurotic and not happy at all. And so, really, to have birds like that, it's a major, major, major commitment. And plus, I always worry about the animal trade, bringing them in from illegally. That is going on. But I know a lot of people breed these birds when they're babies, and then they breed them so that they bond to humans, and so they make better pets, but they're bonded to humans. They think they're people. And of course, parakeets are a little easier. Those macaws, one of my first professions was as a vet tech at an emergency animal clinic. And on the side, I'd help out with another clinic, Dr. Van Winkle's clinic in Westlake. And she did birds for a long time. And I'd have to hold these birds. And the macaws were always the scariest ones, because that bill can crack a really hard nut. So if it got hold of your finger, it could take it off. And they're not happy when you're doing things to them. So we always would take them in another room away from the owners, because we didn't want them to be mad at the owners. We wanted them to be mad at us. So, holding that head, you hold the back of the head, and your hand is around the bill. So you're holding it as tight as, you hold it around the bill, so you can hold it pretty tight. Holding it as tight as possible, and then you can't move. So your hand starts to cramp, but you can't move it. It is the hardest thing I've ever done, was to try to restrain one of those birds. I did it, but it was hard. I don't, has anyone ever owned one of those? Yeah,
African gray.
They're pretty intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were both throwaway birds, and we kind of rescued them. The conure was great, the little conure. She bonded with our son, and they're related, very closely related to macaws.
Yeah.
We finally had to give the African gray, which was born in captivity, bonded with my husband and hated my guts like you can't believe.
Oh, wow.
And
Jealous.
Jealous. And I had to really watch myself around her, because she would draw blood.
Oh, wow.
And we gave her to another man who was similar to my husband, had a full beard, and
Yeah.
she liked him.
As long as he doesn't have a girlfriend or a wife.
But if anybody wants to ever get a bird, see if you can just keep one for a weekend.
See?
They're noisy, messy, and
Yeah,
most people can't, because they're so noisy, you can't get people to keep them.
yeah.
Or-
Yeah, and those macaws, their defense mechanism is their call. So it's like, it's so loud it hurts your ears, and that's their defense mechanism. So you're holding its head and it's going. It's really hard, so, yeah. I wouldn't have another bird. I'm gonna stick with dogs.
And that conure bonded with our oldest son, and then when we had our second son, she would actually chase him on the floor. And when she finally died, because they only lived about 25 years,
Yeah.
he was crying. He was in 8th grade, and I'm taking him to school, and he's crying. I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "I don't know why I'm crying. I hated that bird." She would husband taught her, he'd go, let me see him, let me see him. And she would raise her wings up, because then you'd see all the red underneath.
Oh, wow.
And she was smart and sweet.
The condor?
Yeah, she didn't bite.
Yeah.
I would take her on vacation and, say, no pets, and I just put her in my shirt.
Yeah.
And
They're
she-
about so big, right?
Yeah, but
They're
a
not
really
huge.
long tail.
Yeah.
And she would hang on, and she'd poke her head out, and just hang on to my blouse.
Yeah.
And just,
Oh,
she was
sweet.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends, you know.
They just don't live near as long as African greys.
Oh, African greys don't live very long?
75, no, they
Oh,
live way too long.
75?
Whoa.
Yeah, way too long.
That's,
We weren't gonna,
25 is a long
when
time
we found
too.
somebody that had
That's a big
raised
investment
parrots.
of like time on.
Yeah.
Child,
Yeah, I have a tarantula and a
I
snake,
can
and
duck
both of them
14
live
more
25 years.
We're done.
Yeah.
Both of them, so I,
When we found somebody that would take her, my husband and I, we went, okay, she's gonna way outlive us. She's a Death Eater. Let's give him away what we found a nice home for.
yeah, and he's gonna probably eventually have to find a home for her too. Oh my goodness. So bird watching. Bird watching is, it's a great way of getting out there and, I don't know where I'm at. A bird, like I've been a bird watcher for many, 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 many years, and it really is a great way to, get outdoors and see what's out there, and we've got, over 600 birds in Texas, so it's absolutely, fascinating. How many birders are here? How many do we have? You're kind of one of
What makes you a birder and what makes you a birder and what makes
There's a bird watcher that kind of watches them in the backyard, or a birder actually goes out looking for birds. And when they go on vacation, they plan their vacations about where the birds
Read
are.
about them, they have lists, and tell them what to do all the time.
I think birds are neat.
Yeah, birds are neat. I actually was more of a birder. I'm not as much a birder anymore, only because my master's thesis was a 2-year bird survey. And when you actually spend 2 years every month counting birds and, along a point count, and then, being president of Trapezoid Audubon, I sort of birded myself out for a while. So I'm hoping to kind of back off and kind of let it come back
That's
again.
what I thought I would do too.
Pardon?
That's what I thought I would do, but then getting up that early in the morning is.
No, I don't like getting up early in the morning. That's why I like black-capped vireos.
Yeah.
They sing most of the day. You can get up at 10, you can still count black-capped vireos.
They're just hard to see.
If you can find them.
Yeah, you have to hear them, yeah.
I think I'm a future birder.
Huh?
I think I'm a future birder.
A future birder?
Yeah, because the more I learn about them and see them and notice them, the more I like them. But
Yeah,
I never cared before.
yeah,
Now
cool.
the more I see them, I'm like, ooh, birds. And I'm not there yet to be a birder, but I
Yeah,
can see it happening.
You start watching them in a parking lot eating french fries and you start coming, aww. You're on your way.
yeah, there's great ways of getting involved in bird watching, and that you need field guide is a good way to start. There's apps now that are amazing. Merlin is one of the apps that I really like, and it's free, MERLIN. It's from Cornell, and it even has regions. So you can upload regions, so like I've got the Central Texas one region or this region, and if I go up to the Northwest, I can upload the Northwestern region, so it'll have, because before it was didn't have all the birds I wanted, and now they've got all these regions, and it's really cool. So it's got bird songs, and it's got tells you where the birds are located, where their ranges are, and little information, and I think there's even, I never use it, but there is one where you can kind of put information in to try to ID a bird, and it's really cool. Cornell has been coming up with lots of really cool things.
I was gonna say, what about what Colin's been up to?
Yeah, he's all these little tests is what I'm seeing. What are you talking about?
Oh, I was just talking about when he would post stuff on Facebook
Oh,
about what he
yeah.
was up to in his travels.
Oh, he's always up to something.
That must be an amazing place to work.
He's working for, eBird. And he's working on various projects. So right now, he's got a project where it's kind of like these little tests, you test yourself on how well you know species. So he's got them in different little groups, like different kinds of venomous snakes and woodpeckers.
Where are
and-
those posted?
They're on the website. You can, I just took a class on the Cornell website.
Yeah.
It's what.edu.
Oh, they were on there?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. I took the bird one. It was like a
Ooh.
class and it's free.
I'm gonna
Whole
do that.
thing. Yeah, you had to pay them, but I don't remember how much it was. But they also have animals too.
But this was just, maybe they had 20 animals, 20 things. It was all a little short.
Oh, was it? This was like an extensive.
Yeah, no, this is something he's been recently working on.
You have
He's
to be a
been,
member of Cornell's.
No, you just give them money and then
yeah, the thing Colin's doing isn't costing any money.
Yeah.
But his is, I think it's still in the testing phase, so he's just sending it out to those of us that are.
It's like a
testing it
Cornell
out to see how well
course,
it's doing.
but it's online.
Wow.
It's a free course.
Yeah, Cornell's pretty amazing. So he's up in New York.
Ugh.
Yeah, yes.
It's like Ithaca, right? This like, that's cold.
Yeah, he got his undergraduate there, so at least he knows what he's in for. So anyway, yeah, birds are amazing. They come in all these different colors that are just absolutely beautiful. If you ever get to go to Central and South America, how many of you have gone to Central or South America? Yeah, the birds, that's where to see all the amazing colors. And did you ever go to Panama? Anybody go to Panama? Yeah, Panama's pretty cool. I went with Travis Audubon Society, we had a trip there, and they have this place called Canopy Towers, where you get to, it's this big tower, and you can actually go all the way to the top of the tower, and you're right at the canopy, and you can just, they have the birds right there. It's just so cool. You're up on, have your morning coffee, and you're up in the canopy. That's pretty cool. So anyway, so birds are very diverse, with many hundred, or 10,000, nearly 10,000 different species worldwide, and classification for birds is going through some changes right now, and they were aves, and now they've classified them as reptiles.
No.
What? Seriously?
Seriously.
When did that happen?
When, yeah.
Just within the last few
Very
years.
interesting.
Just in the last, they have reptilian
Right.
characteristics.
But still. That's just too.
Well,
They're
but they,
just little dinosaurs?
well, but
They're just little baby dinosaurs?
Yeah, they're little dinosaurs.
yeah, they found several dinosaur eggs,
Yeah.
like recently they're like very well preserved.
They have
found-
feathers.
They were covered in feathers.
They have feathers.
So
And so they were like,
cool.
because that's been like the morphological idea is,
Yeah.
these are like
And how
bird
many millions of
predecessors.
years ago was that?
What's that?
How many millions of years? 65?
65. Yeah, so they're like,
And that
oh,
was a dead.
these are
That was
actually.
right around the Cretaceous.
Like, it was a very.
65 million?
bizarre, yeah. Or very like interesting thing, like all of the supposition was completely proven because they found all these eggs from different species that were just like,
Yeah.
oh, they all have feathers, every single
I
one.
didn't know they.
But they haven't actually broken down the classifications yet. They're still using the Aves classification with the families and the orders and, and so forth. They haven't really gotten that far.
When did they do that? When are they?
I know that the research was being done in the 90s, because when I was at A&M, I got to hear this professor that was working on that. And it was a little controversial at the time.
That's so cool. Love it.
But now it's not taxonomy anymore, like they can,
Yeah.
they're doing like genetic coding.
Yeah,
And they're like, oh, they have the exact same, these are,
yeah,
Reptiles.
yeah, so it's really, that's what they're ending up being, so. So it'll be real interesting to see in the future how it gets, how they sort it out, because they haven't really sorted
I think
anything
it's
out
just a
yet.
big plot for those guys to do more bird guide, ID bird.
So bad.
Yeah, they'll have to do a new field
justified
guide.
reprints.
Are they gonna put the lizards in with the birds? I mean,
Yeah, I know.
how are they gonna do that?
That's so interesting.
But if you look at their legs, they're scales. There's all these scales on their legs, so, yeah, they're definitely reptilian.
Have you ever seen an emu early in the morning looking at you?
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah,
is definitely raptor type stuff.
yeah, that's true.
That's
So I guess it was an ostrich, one place in Oregon, and it came around and it was trying to figure out how to get into the car.
I think emus are the worst though. They're like,
We used to, you know,
Yeah.
when the emu market busted and
Oh,
all the
yeah.
emus are running around loose, you'd be somewhere and they'd you'd be bird watching. What's that? It would be an emu. It was unsettling. to
There were
me.
quite a few that got loose. There was a big emu thing in the 80s.
Yeah,
Everyone?
they're mean.
Well,
Are they?
in
Yeah.
central Texas, I saw quite a few of them, actually.
Yeah.
And the coyotes either got them up against fences or cars.
Yeah, or something.
They didn't last.
They didn't do too well on their own.
Well, their legs were breaking.
Huh?
They were getting injured pretty badly because they're just not made for like
Fences?
terrain and fences and all
Yeah.
that. and so-
Yeah.
Self-correcting problem.
Invasive-
Unfortunately, but very
invasive
sad,
didn't
but
make it.
Yeah, there was this big thing, they were trying to push emu oils and meat. It was like
Eggs
good,
and, yeah.
good red meat, you know, and lean red meat. It just didn't make it.
Chachalakas look very prehistoric to me.
They do too, yeah. They definitely do.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, really, when you think about it. When you look at, what was it, the earliest bird before they decided reptiles were birds too. What was the name of that bird? No, it was, I don't remember the name of the darn thing.
What are you trying to, you don't mean like,
The bird dinosaur.
Archaeopteryx.
Archaeopteryx.
There you go.
Yes, thank you, Archaeopteryx. Yeah, well, that was like one of the earliest birds, you know, before I think they're earlier now. But anyway, so the tropics have the most diversity of birds, so that's the best place to go to find them. And we're in the subtropics here, so, you know, this is also a pretty good place to see a lot of birds. I just went on the Texas Ornithological Society's webpage, because they always have a list of the number of species found in Texas. And this is the most recent they had was 648 species of birds in Texas as of May 19th,
did they happen to
2017.
mention how the Texas coast fared through the hurricane?
No, they didn't say, I didn't see anything on there about
I
that
heard a
yet.
rumor that it's pretty bad as far as habitat.
Yeah, I heard that they were worried about the cranes flying back to Aranda's Park because of the blue crab.
Oh,
And
yeah.
who knows where the blue crabs are now, because that's where that
Because so much fresh
hurricane
water
came.
came in. And
Yeah,
But you know that there was a lot of fresh water coming in, but those systems are kind of used to that, so who knows?
Okay.
It'll be interesting to
I
see
heard a lot
how.
of the vegetation was stripped off the trees and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well they fare.
Because all I've heard are rumors from people, nobody that, like
Yeah.
Parks and Wildlife hasn't come out with
No,
anything.
they haven't, and neither has US
US
Fish
Fish
and
and
Wildlife.
Wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, they're too busy trying to, US Fish and Wildlife is down there, and they're too busy trying to, no, I think it's the International Crane Foundation. Their building got destroyed, so they're trying to fix up their building now.
Where was that Rockport?
yeah, Rockport, yeah.
Is that where they're
I
building?
think they were
it?
in Rockport, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're busy doing that, so, yeah. And the birds are, right now, the hoopers are in North Dakota, I found out yesterday. And they're keeping tabs on where the birds are. So they're in North Dakota. So who knows, you know, give it a few weeks. They can handle a lot more than, you know, at least, they don't worry about structural problems, you know, as long as the habitat's still there. You know, and they do need a certain amount of fresh water, and those bays need a certain amount of fresh water to flush them out, so who knows, it might not be as bad as we think.
And last time they had trouble, we had up Granger Lake, so.
Yeah, and that's because there wasn't enough water. There was a drought, and there was not enough fresh water getting down to the coast. So the hoopers like to have a certain amount of fresh water, because they'll fly in and drink some fresh water and then go back out and feed in the bays, you know, and the freshwater mix is important for those blue crabs. So if not enough fresh water is getting out there, it's hard for the blue crabs to survive. And so the hoopers were moving inland, about 200 miles inland to Granger. And they stayed at Granger for for 2 years.
Oh, 2 years straight.
Well, you know, they spent 2 winters there, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They spent 2 winters there,
I heard
but the
that.
water levels were really low at Granger, and then when we had a lot of rain and it came back up, they didn't come back. So I think it was, the habitat was right, because the water was down pretty low. And you know what they were eating? Freshwater mussels.
Fat buckets.
Yeah, there's no fat buckets there, so they're okay. Fat buckets don't like lakes, they like streams and rivers. So, anyway, so, yeah, cougars are really pretty fascinating birds. So where are we? Okay, so then, the next few species are species that are only found in Texas, and that's what's kind of exciting. They're found in Mexico and south, but in the United States, Texas is the only place you can find them, is the green jay. And yeah, they're beautiful, beautiful birds, and they're kind of moving their way up. You know, I bet you anything they're up a little further than this now even. Yeah, it's getting warmer, so they're moving north, and they're real pretty. If you go down to the valley, you can see them everywhere. They're gorgeous, gorgeous. And then here's your chachalaca. One thing I like about the chachalaca is, you know, for birding, it's kind of fun to, if you're learning about how to identify birds by their song, you know, it's fun when birds say their name. And these guys go, chachalaka, 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 chachalaka.
Kids can say their name too.
Huh?
Kids can say their name too.
Yeah. Kitskitty, kitskitty. Instead of Phoebe's. Phoebe.
And that can get annoying.
Okay, so anyway, this is another one. Again, the only place in the United States you can go. So when people do big ears, have you ever heard of the big
Yeah.
ears? And that's, of course, I don't think they include Mexico in a big ear.
This should be just the United States, right?
Yeah, but North America. If it's North America,
Oh, that's
then
true.
Mexico is in North America.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not sure if, I don't remember hearing of anyone going to Mexico for a big ear. But anyway, how many of you know what a big ear is?
You have to see that movie.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's called
God.
A Big Ear.
The Big Year.
The
Oh
Big
my
Ear
gosh,
came
it's
out just
great.
4 or 5 years ago, something like that, 5 years ago. It's a little misleading.
It
but
is a
it's-
little
It
bit,
is.
yeah, there's some things that I'm like,
It is.
oh, that's not right.
Like-
But it's
like-
okay, it's
like-
so cute, I own it, I don't care.
Yeah, like when the birds come into the coastline for a
Oh,
fallout.
High Island?
That
Yeah.
fallout was like oh my God, that's not what it looked like.
Yeah, and then I think there was a bunting that was, I don't know.
It was wrong,
Yeah.
But it's, you know, Hollywood. so-
Yeah, no, it was cute, I loved it, I own it, whatever.
Yeah, the book was really good. The book was
I have the book
written
too.
by Berger, you know, so at least that was correct. But the movie was Hollywood. But and people do this all the time. There's people right now trying to do a big year, trying to get more
They just
than
had the-
700 and something species.
It had the most ever, the last one.
You know who it was?
No, I don't, it was Nora, I don't know who it is, but.
Yeah.
Somebody got like the highest ever.
Wow.
John Weigel, Australian.
Oh, I know him. He wrote a book. That's what he
Yeah, there you go, that's it then, I don't know. Like, I don't know, some dude,
He wrote a book.
some dude. who loves birds.
I remember that guy. I just remember his book, and I think it's on bird conservation.
783 species.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, so they spend a lot of money and a whole lot of time. You know, they start January 1st, you know, as soon as, you know, January 1st starts, and then they go out and they count as many birds in North America as possible and try to beat the record, or sometimes it's beating someone else that's also out there trying to. So it's very, very highly competitive. They go to all these islands and the Aleutians and, you know, they go absolutely
So
insane.
do different countries do it too? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if other
England,
countries do it.
or Europe is really into birding, and I think they have their own.
They call them
year.
twitchers, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah, twitches, yes. It was, the area I grew up in is on the south coast of England, and it's very popular with twitchers.
That's
Yeah.
And my dad had a weird sense of humour, and he used to take photographs of them, and he said he was, because they're called bird watchers, and he said, I'm a bird watcher. He got published right as thing in the local newspaper.
That's cool.
That is very
To answer
cool.
the question about where,
Yeah.
so the American Birding Association area is Canada and the US.
But not
So, but
Mexico.
not Mexico.
Huh.
But it says that other areas or other people use other criteria, don't be like sometimes for state or for world or.
Yeah, or by month, there's
Yeah.
even month counts. Or in Texas, there's county counts.
That's, so if somebody says they got 1,000 in a big year, you should ask them if they're, if it's worldwide or if they're using.
Yeah,
Because that
yeah,
783 was the ABA area,
yeah,
so.
yeah, 780, yeah, and that does not include, it should include Mexico, but maybe, yeah, it's a little, probably harder to get into certain areas of Mexico, so I don't know if that was. Anyway, that's what a big year is. And you'll never see me do a big year. I'm not a lister. I write down when I see birds, and I could probably tell you the first time I saw a bird, but I don't keep a list. I have books all over the place with notes in them. Someday somebody else can put them together. And then this is a really special little bird, the Colima warbler. Has anyone seen the Colima warbler?
No.
I have.
Big Bend, right?
Huh?
In Big Bend?
Yeah.
That's cool.
In the Pinnacle Trail, yeah. We went
Oh,
up-
just, really, that's specific?
We went up the Pinnacle Trail, and I was with a person who knew where they were, so we went up the Pinnacle Trail, and then up to a certain point, and she was calling in black-capped vireos, chickadees, black-capped, Carolina chickadees. And the chickadees came, and the Colima was for the chickadees. So it was, they breed, and the only place in the US is where they breed is Big Bend.
Wow.
And so it is, that's one of the bigger people's big goals, is to see a Colima.
Is Pinnacle Trail, is that where Boot Springs is on that trail?
Thanks, well, the Emery Peak, when you get to the top. I don't think Boot Springs is there. Boot Springs is
So
on
we
the
went, they were at
portion.
Boot Springs and, so.
Yeah, no, this is on the way up to Emery. So it's that, that trail that meanders, and it's like straight up. I spent a lot of time in Big Bend, and then, yeah, that's one of the hardest trails to start. And whenever we backpacked, we always start on the Meadow Trail, worked our way down. And it's a little easier that way. So anyway, yeah, this is a special bird in Texas. So the next part, your book goes into different categories of birds. Like land, so we have birds that swim most of their time on the land, most of their time around freshwater, seabirds, flightless birds, and underwater flyers. So these are some of the examples of the land birds. This one here, does anyone tell me what that is? It's a hawk. It's a red-tailed hawk. Now, how do you think I know that's a red-tailed hawk without seeing its tail? It has a belly band. See these marks right here on the wings? Tattoo marks. That's the key point to look for when there's a hawk flying over. If it has these dark marks.
The red shoulder doesn't have that?
No
Why
other
is it
hawk.
called red shoulder?
It's on the backside. This is on the underside of the wing.
Now you just told, because I'm always like, I couldn't tell.
The red is back here on the red shoulder.
All right.
Yeah, so it's not really red, it's kind of brown, but it's usually, so you're always gonna have that mark.
You can only see it in flight.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so when they're flying, and oftentimes, well, if they bank, sometimes you see the red tail, but they don't always have a red tail. The criders, the lighter ones, don't always have a really red tail. And the younger ones don't always have it. And they also have this belly band, but sometimes that band is a little,
But they always have that.
they always have a tattoo mark, always. That was one of my Ed Kutek points. How to tell a red tail.
What
What is that, the bird that has like a black band right here and it's always around the lights and the, is that a nighthawk?
Yeah, common nighthawk.
My dad calls those bull bats.
Yeah,
Is that
that's,
what they're all?
yeah, that's another common name for it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Capra-mulgity is the family they're in. They call them, what, huh?
Goat sucker.
Goat suckers.
Yep.
They are the most fascinating birds. If you've ever got a hold of one, and they have these little tiny bills, but when they open their mouth, it's like huge mouth. It's huge mouth.
Wait, they call them goat suckers?
Yeah, I guess where they, people thought they sucked on goats.
Well, 'cause that's
You ever
chupacabra
said that?
in
Yeah.
Spanish.
Yeah, but it's Capra-mulgity is their family. Yeah.
Chupacabra is goat sucker?
Chupacabra is goats, chupa is to suck, and cabra is
No
goat.
way, that is weird.
Goat sucker.
Oh.
I didn't know
But it's a nighthawk.
that.
Yeah, it's a common nighthawk. They go,
It's a red
Yeah, I
color.
think that's sparking.
lights, great bugs. Yeah. Yeah, those are pretty cool. This is cerulean warbler, one of our cool we've got, in the spring and the fall, we get the most amazing amount of warblers and vireos and coming through. And later on, I think I'll talk about going down to the coast for whenever we have a fallout. And that is something you might want to think about doing someday.
What time of year, or does it depend on the weather?
Around April, but it depends on the weather. You know, you have to have a really good storm coming in. You know, going down, yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute, because I think I've got that later, but yeah.
What did you call that mark right there?
Patagium?
Patagium?
Yeah, patagium, I think is singular, patagium. Yeah, of course, that's a type of quail. Yeah, huh?
Blue whale.
Well, that's a common name, but the scale quail is the, scale quail.
And in Texas, they
Montezuma.
call them like crocodiles or something.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
rancher.
There's a lot of common names for these guys. But funny thing about birds is that their common names are standardized. You know, like in other species, you know, like in plants, you know, it can be a buttercup or a, you know, it's got a whole bunch of names, you know, but with birds, they've standardized common birds' names. So it's, you know, so like the Mearns quail, that's another common name, but that's still a bobwhite. Mearns. Yeah. Yeah, northern bobwhite, the exact name. You want to be exact. Montezuma's quail, these are pretty cool. You know, and this is, I think it's a leatherback. And so then we have lots of shorebirds, freshwater birds. This is the purple gallinule, is one of the most gorgeous birds. You know, that I was, where was I? I was working at the emergency animal hospital years ago, and somebody brought one of these birds in, and they were like, this can't be a wild bird, it's gotta be somebody's
They
pet.
caught it?
Yeah, it's too beautiful.
Oh, no.
So we released it.
That's like somebody posted a sign at my apartment complex with a picture of a tarantula and it says, to call this number.
Absolutely not.
Somebody lost their tarantula. I have a tarantula,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
my tarantula's a rose-haired, so.
Never seen
you know,
that
you-
thing again. Everyone in
It's
favor.
not a native to this area.
Coastal Austin, Austin
That's almost a good
also.
Say what?
On Austin,
Yeah.
They took a picture of a monkey bird.
I knew it, I knew someone was gonna say
Oh,
that. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Look
there's
how
somebody
often that
that's
happens.
very exotic looking.
I mean, it could happen.
I was
I mean,
like, no.
I was with a friend up in Wisconsin, and we were birding, and so we were sitting at a picnic table, and I see this bird in the tree, and it's like, that color does not look right. You know, it doesn't look like a native bird, and I'm looking at it, it doesn't look right. Put my hand up, the thing flew down and lit on my finger, and it was a parakeet. It lit on my finger.
Aww.
So took it home. I was up there visiting, so I couldn't take it home, but she took it home and kept it. But,
I've seen them.
yeah,
I've seen budgies around.
yes, yeah, but in Wisconsin would not be a good place for parrots. You would not survive the winter, I'm sorry. But anyway, does anyone know what kind of egret this is? No? Look at those
I
feet.
was confused with Snowy and the Great Egret.
Look at the feet. Look at the feet. Golden slippers.
Oh, wait, what is that? Go ahead and say that again.
The golden slippers are snowy.
Snowy.
Snowy always has golden slippers.
Who has, what one has yellow legs and which one has black legs? Heron or egret? There isn't one that has black feet and black legs?
Yeah,
That's
there's
white.
the great egret,
Oh, great egret.
has black and black. And then, but they have more of a yellowish bill, I think. And then.
And it's not
Cattle has a
plumey.
yellowish bill. Huh?
Okay, it's not plumy.
They're only plumey like that during breeding season. Those are the breeding plumes.
Is
They
there a
have
totally
those.
white heron?
I just always call
That's
it
big.
Native American.
No, well, there is a great blue heron that's tabby white.
What is
It's a
what are
white
its
morph.
feet? What are its feet and legs?
They're kind of greenish.
Okay, that's right, yeah.
They're kind of a greenish color, but yeah, no, there is a white morph for the great blue heron.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah. But anyway, this is the snowy. I think snowy's one of the prettiest little herons we have. Of course, this is my favorite duck.
Pintail.
Yeah, northern pintail, that's my favorite duck. I think they're so elegant.
Can I ask a clarification question about something you mentioned earlier?
We'll see.
You said that sometimes like the common names are kind of standardized,
They are
or
standardized.
they are standardized, but people will, I've noticed people will call like the egret, the cattle egret, a cowbird, but that's not, there's like actually a brown-headed
There is a cowbird.
cowbird, and
Yeah.
like they'll also just call that, so is that just sort of, it's a common name, but we're not.
Colloquialism.
Well, it's
Okay.
kind of like, hey,
Like
there's
a
a
local
buzzard.
name.
Yeah, okay, that- yeah,
And I tell people that buzzards are in Europe.
right.
We don't have buzzards in the United States. Buzzards are in Europe, right? They're a rodeo too, they're a hawk, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the buzzards are budios, they're hawks. And in Europe, I saw one.
Well, I think it's just because a lot of people that never took ornithology in their
Right.
life, they notice birds and they know
Yeah.
they're different. and
Well, yeah, they call it cattle egret is around cattle, so that's a cow.
And the Europeans who probably first came over here saw a bird flying and went, that's a buzzard.
So we got the, what do we call it, we got the common moorhen, and didn't they switch that name back again?
Oh, yeah, did they switch it?
Well, they
The
switched
moorhen's
it.
not a moorhen
I
anymore?
thought somebody told me they were changing that one.
Oh, I haven't heard that. I'm not,
But, you know, they switch names.
yeah, sure. This thing's certainly bird.
Yeah, yellow perch, white perch.
But it just gets forever used to call them moorhen.
It's not moorhen, is it?
It still is.
Oh, okay.
Somebody they're gonna change that back.
Oh, okay.
We call it your welcome Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, they change them all the time. All right.
What's that blue one called again? The
Hmm?
blue one?
The purple gallinule.
Purple gallon.
Gallinule, G-A-N, G-A-L-A-N-U-L-E.
Was the moorhen a common gallinule? What was moorhen? What did it?
I don't know, they used to be.
There's no more. They don't use moorhen anymore.
I think they use
No, I think they
moorhen.
still are. I just heard that they
But the
were-
moorhens are more like the coots.
Yeah.
I always think moorhens and coots are pretty similar. Yeah. Anyway, so, and then we have seabirds, and that's a blue-footed booby. Back in the 80s, there actually was a booby that got lost and ended up in Lake Buchanan, near Lake Buchanan, and it spent,
It was 91.
yeah, okay, 91, spent
I remember his first
weeks
trip
and weeks
here.
and weeks at this person's dock, you know, and boat dock. And they even had a book there so you can sign in when you went to see the bird.
That's so cute.
I actually went to see him, my name's in that book.
That's all I remember was my mom, because I was smooching with,
Oh my God, that's
Crazy.
The booby bug sign in there.
It was lost, it was really, really lost.
Really lost.
Yeah, and so it must have just, all the other movies went one way and it went another, so, because then it kept continuing going east, and the last I heard it was in Bastrop, and then they didn't hear from it and all that. So, I mean, it's just as well it didn't breed.
Yeah. That's a genetics issue at that point.
Darwin, you
Yeah.
should win the Darwin Award.
Read the wrong motivational poster. Not going your own way.
But we get boobies down at the coast, I think brown boobies I've heard that we've had at the coast. Because there's a list, you can get a rare bird alert list, and you can, and birders will go, oh, there's a, what was that, Jabiru was down at the coast in August. It was a Jabiru, which is this big stork-looking thing.
Really?
And that was all over, and everybody was like, where is it? Do you get text birds? I get the
Yeah, I
text
get
birds.
emails daily.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get emails every day, like multiple times a day.
So they say, okay, it's here, so everybody's running there to see it.
It's not a rare bird, and I'm like, dude.
The forked flycatcher was
I
pretty
know,
cool.
was
Did
it-
you see that one?
No, it was McKay Falls, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
totally missed that, let's not talk about it.
I kind of saw it, but not great.
ah,
I was with Chuck Sexton and
That's like
and he's like, yeah, and they even took photo, the Parks and Wildlife had their videos out there, so they were videoing us looking, and they're going, okay, it looked like you're looking at it, and we're looking at it, and going, and Chuck's making jokes, and I'm laughing. Luckily, there was no sound. It was pretty funny. Anyway, so the brown pelican, very common at the coast. The white pelicans, the American white pelican, is, it's down at the coast, I think in the winter, and then they migrate here. And so, but that's really the only pelicans we see coming through here, are the American white pelicans. They're
there's more
bigger.
pelicans than those two?
No, there's just two.
Oh, okay.
But don't the white ones come through Austin?
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought so.
yeah, you'll see
They
big
have, like,
flocks
big-
of them.
yeah.
Yeah, I see big flocks of them coming through Austin. A lot of times people get them confused, but for some reason get them confused with cooking cranes.
When do they usually come?
Huh?
When do they usually come?
They'll be coming through now.
Really?
Oh, good.
Yeah, they'll be coming through real soon. Yeah, so watch for pelicans.
Yeah, they're real high up and they circle around.
Yeah. And they'll come down and, and rest for periods of time, but yeah. So they're pretty cool bird to see. And then, of course, this is one of my favorites. This is the,
Fabulous, glorious.
frigate bird, yes. Magnificent frigate bird. They have this ruler pouch that is really cool when that they balloon up when they're trying to, impress a woman, that's a male there. And they spend most of their time out at sea, and they very seldom come into Austin. They have to have a good, I think there was a bunch of them here right after the hurricane. So you have to have a good, strong wind or storm to bring them in. And
There was some
they had
came
quite
into-
a few of them.
Oh, quite a
Recently.
few.
Quite a few,
After
at least 6 or 7 or 8, I think. I heard that there were a lot of them out.
Mansfield Dam,
Yeah, just
Mansfield Dam.
a whole bunch of them, yeah. And, you go out into the Caribbean, you see them all over. You go to Central America, you can see them all over, but only in Texas, it takes a good storm.
Are there more than just that one? Or are there more
Types of
types of?
frigates? I don't know. That's the only one I know of in Texas, but I don't know about other frigates. I think they're very pterodactyl looking.
Yeah.
Pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Very ancient looking, and, one time I was with some,
That's a cool bird.
They're cool to watch.
I was with some friends, and we were doing a workshop down at Matagorda Bay, at the LCRA Nature Center down there. We were doing a workshop, and a hurricane was coming in, so we were keeping track of where the hurricane was, so we'd get out of there before it got too late, because the road going to the nature center was like really low, so that the water kind of laps over it if you wait too long. And so we waited till the very last minute to get out of there, and we're driving back and the water's lapping over the road.
Where was
And
that?
that was Matagorda down at LCRA.
Because I was there before a hurricane came in, but I was on the island.
Yeah, we were at Matagorda Bay at the.
So you were on the, yeah.
Yeah,
That
LCRA's
was the same
nature
deal.
center, and, yeah, but we're driving along and all of a sudden, I stopped because there were all these frigate birds.
That's scary though, it's like into time, so it's like get out of there.
You know, and my friends were like, Marsha! Frigate birds!
Marsha said, frigate, I'm not going anywhere.
It's another pelagic bird, it's white. Has a
Albatross.
big, thick,
Albatross?
No.
No.
It's got a big white bill, they're off the coast of Texas, you see them a lot.
Is it like that kind of bird, or I mean, is
No,
it a
it's-
shore bird?
It's a pelagic bird, like a frigate, I mean, you don't see them unless you're out in a boat usually.
Hmm.
Shearwater? No,
No,
that's small.
no, this is a big one.
And it's all white?
It's pretty much all white.
And it's large sized bird?
And it has a big bill?
Big bill. It's a big bird. I mean, when you pick it up, it's like picking up a pelican.
It's not a pelican,
No,
an American white pelican.
I can't remember, during the BP oil spill,
You mean cormorants?
no,
sorry.
they're black.
No black.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We caught so many young ones out, in the water.
They weren't albatross, huh?
No. We caught so many that the Fish and Wildlife Service was freaked out because they didn't know there were that many. They were like, where are these coming from? We didn't even know they were here.
Oh, we'll have to look it up, try to figure out what
And then, of
it
course, we
is.
never heard another word.
Yeah.
We were just stupid technicians.
Oh, I wonder what they were.
I know the name. What a bird, bird.
Look up in a Merlin.
I have a hybrid.
Oh, I can't, we'd be here all night. This is more interesting.
What I like about them is, I just checked, because there's a subspecies called the magnificent.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
That's the magnificent, I think
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
That's magnificent.
Yeah, that's magnificent. Aren't they cool?
Oh, that's it. I mean,
And it can
it's-
apparently
So
not
there's
land
not
for
an old
days.
So there's more
Yeah,
than one.
they can what?
They don't have to land for days
No,
up
I
there.
know.
They
Look at
just-
those wings. I mean, they're made for flying.
Awesome. That's the awesome.
That's what's so cool about birds. It's like each one has their own little characteristic.
Yeah.
Try to
That's
do
great.
something.
That's like something like a line right there.
And of course, we're back to the flightless birds. Which unless they were released, like here's the emu. Unless they were released, the emu feathers, have you ever seen them? They're like two different veins. You know, like they're split veins. They're the weirdest looking feathers you ever saw. You know, instead of one vein, they have split veins.
What does?
Emu feathers.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess that makes them so fuzzy like that, but.
I think emu are pretty kind of scary. I was out driving in the middle of nowhere up to Lubbock, and there was nothing anywhere.
Yeah.
No people behind me, no people in front of me, and I was driving and I looked, there was this freaking emu standing there. I thought it was, and I hadn't lived here that long, so I was like, freaking alien out here. And they just stand there looking like,
I think an ostrich might be scarier
weird.
as far as running into one, because they can really hurt you. They've got really strong feet, and they kick. All right, so these are the flightless. None of them are native to here. And underwater flyers, I like that penguin picture, that was pretty. They've got the anhinga, this is an anhinga, and we have those here. Yeah, they're snakebird, because when they're in the water, it's just their heads are up, you know, and so all you see is that little head, you know, so the anhinga, which is this one right here. And of course, this is the, it's not the double-crested, that's the neotropic cormorant, because it's got white down the belly here. So the neotropic would just, or the double-crested would just be yellow. are orangish all the way back. But the cormorants, we've got 2 species of cormorants here. And they're a little bit smaller than the double-crested, and they're not as common. So this, you can see the double-crested more. And they fish, you know, they dive down and fish. And I think in Asian countries, they use cormorants to fish. They put rings around their necks and then they
can't swallow it.
yeah, they can't swallow the fish, so they bring them up and then they take the, I hope they take the rings off once in a while, let me eat. They would have to. They would have to. So then next we're going to talk about migration, and it's really from the Nearctic to the Neotropical. You know, most of our birds that will migrate through go through, this is the route between the two. And so why do they migrate? They migrate for food, you know, when food is available. That's why, you know, with climate change and temperature changes, you know, food food cycling is changing a little bit. And so that's making it difficult for birds. You know, and they maybe get there too early before there's any food available or whatever, or the food's, yeah, it's the, what am I saying? Really why they migrate is for food and for temperature-wise too, which is so that the food is available for them, and then also less competition for nesting is why they migrate. Also for a milder climate, and then for longer daylight hours. So oftentimes we have birds that migrate here from South and Central America, and they breed here in the summertime, and then we have birds that from here that go further north, you know, and during the summer and breed up there. So here we have a really interesting group of birds that come through. And so like each season you can always see such a variety of different species. So, and then often many of the ducks and the geese, they fly in these V formations. Does anyone know why they fly in those V formations?
More aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Huh?
More aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, less drag, so they take turns.
How do you decide who's the front one?
They take turns.
They take turns.
So when they'll go along and this front one gets tired, they'll come to the back and then somebody else will take over, so
Oh.
they'll take turns. So they can go a lot further that way.
Is it like penguins, how they rotate, who gets a brunt of the wind?
Yes.
And the group?
Oh, yeah.
Like the what?
Like when the penguins are clustered together and whoever's on the wind side, like they kind of rotate.
Yeah, rotate it so
Yeah.
they don't freeze.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's rough. Yeah. And so where do they migrate? Of course, see this map? It shows all these birds' migration routes, but through National Geographic. It's on their website, but you know, as I said earlier, you know, the Canada and northern U.S., you know, those species will breed up there and have their young up there, and then in the wintertime they'll come down and spend it at the coast, Gulf of Mexico, and then we have and so that would be like our whooping cranes. You know, they breed up in Canada and then they come down here and they spend their winters in Texas. And that's the only place that they spend their winters. We only have one native wild flock that's going, you know, between Canada. There was the other one that they sort of started in the east, in Florida. It's more of a temporary, not temporary, but an experimental flock. And that's the one where they had the biplanes and they, you know, taught the birds how to go. And so I guess that's working, you know, but we'll see what happens. But really the only wild native flock of hoopers comes to Texas.
Don't they have several non-migratory flocks though now?
There's one in Louisiana. This is really funny.
They try to get them to migrate, like they go move them with trucks and stuff.
No, they don't want them to migrate. And see, originally there was this stationary group of whooping cranes that just lived in Louisiana. And all those birds eventually died off, the ones who stayed there originally. Well, now the biologists crack me up, because they want to take the migratory birds, you know, that they've bred, and take those to Louisiana, and they expect them to stay in Louisiana. But they come from the migratory flock, right? So they've got migration in their brain. And so what happens, the first year it was hilarious. They had these birds in Louisiana, and then all of a sudden they were showing up in the summertime, or was it in the winter? In the summertime. Summertime, they were showing up in Dallas. They were hanging out in Dallas.
Big cranes in Dallas, I was like, yeah, right. They were in some pond and some.
Yeah, there was a couple, and they still do it, you know, they don't stay, and it's like, well, we had a meeting in Parks and Wildlife, and what are we gonna do with these Louisiana birds? Because when they're in Louisiana, they aren't protected, they're not protected by the Endangered Species Act, because there is a test, you know, flock, so they're not protected under the but as soon as they leave Louisiana, they are. So when they get to Texas, they're considered an endangered species, so we have to worry about them. And if they end up going to Dallas and decide to breed in Dallas, what if they breed on private property and that landowner is like, oh my God, I got an endangered species breeding on my
They
property?
weren't an experimental, considered an experimental population?
As soon as they leave the state, they're not.
They're not, I didn't know that.
Yes. They're trying to change the rules now so that if at least they go to Texas, they're still considered experimental. That was what we were talking about. They're trying to.
One of those little glitches.
Yeah.
It's a gannet.
Oh, gannet, okay. Yeah. I'm not as good with my pelagic birds.
I think it's a northern gannet.
Yeah, every time I go to the coast, it's like I gotta get the book out and study it. All the gulls and the terns and the, yeah, but anyway, yeah, so those Louisiana birds, they're a
They
pain.
had some in Florida too that were.
They do, that's the one though, the biplane,
But I thought
that they're a stationary,
yeah, I thought they were trying to get some stationary.
maybe so, yeah, I'm not as familiar with
And I know
that.
they had some drowned in a hurricane.
Oh, yeah, oh, I imagine. I wonder how the ones did in Louisiana, I haven't really heard
Yeah,
from all the flooding
that
and
was several
everything.
years ago. The
Yeah.
refuge they had them on a refuge in a big enclosure, and they tried to get to them to see how they were, but I don't know what happened.
Oh, my gosh.
So
Yeah, I don't know. But it's Louisiana birds are pretty funny.
What would be the most unusual bird that you can, either you've seen or you can think of that was in Texas? That maybe shouldn't have been?
I went this threaded hummingbird, this is one of the rarest since I've been.
But it could be here. Isn't that recent?
Yeah, but it's never been in the United States ever.
But it's from Mexico.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a lot of those hummingbirds coming in, they're coming in from Mexico. The most unusual, weird bird?
In Texas.
Yeah. Flamingo.
I was gonna say, has there ever been a
Has that
flamingo in
happened though?
Texas?
Really?
It's
Really?
so rare, it's ridiculous.
What was it doing here?
I think it was from Florida or
Florida,
something,
probably.
yeah, it ended up here for some reason, probably a storm, you
Yeah.
know, and whatever, but,
Wow.
but everyone thinks that the spoonbill is a flamingo, and I'm always arguing with people that are always like, oh yeah, we got lots of flamingos here. There's those big pink birds. And they're actually
The roseate
spoonbills, roseate spoonbills.
I was in Florida, but the weirdest one I ever found, and a guy called me for like a week to come see it, and I said, it was a nene goose.
Oh, wow.
And it was a
Cool.
nene goose.
Wow.
I had a
That's
guy
Hawaii,
from
right?
Hawaii that
Yeah.
came, well, he's from Portland, but he's been to Hawaii a lot, and he goes, shh, you don't have a nene. I said, I know, this guy needs calling. So we
Was
went
it?
to see
And it was.
And we got out of the truck, and he goes, that's a nene.
Did you do it like that?
He pointed right there, it was under his carport.
Huh.
So,
Had a little.
Did somebody-
band, like a, not a Fish and Wildlife Service band.
but like a pet or something?
Well, we think it was raised in an aviary or
Oh,
something.
okay.
So we gathered it up and called, and somebody came to collect it.
Huh.
So you just never know what you're gonna find.
Oh, I know, and birds can fly.
They can escape.
they can escape. Like this is the coolest bird, is the Arctic tern, because it has the longest, like, I've got the statistics, I'm always horrible about remembering the statistics. Let's see, 20,000 miles per year. Wow. It flies round trip 20,000 miles per year. And it goes to wherever the summer is. So when it's summer in one up north, and they're there, and then they come down and they're, so they have, the red is the breeding grounds. And so, and then here's their wintering grounds.
What do they eat during migration?
I know they stop regularly and feed along the way. So they
So
must,
they're much closer to the coast then?
yeah,
Okay, than the arrows show?
yeah. But I think they stop and feed along the way.
That's just hard to believe.
Is there any reasoning to why they don't adapt to either north or tropical, and then they don't have to fly that much?
Well, this is freezes over, and this freezes over. So they leave when it, yeah, they have to, because it freezes over.
It just seems like they would adapt.
Somewhere in the middle.
But that's their adaptation.
Yeah.
That's their,
That's what they've been
their
doing.
adaptation.
Yeah.
Fortunate.
These are the longest, this bird does the longest migration of any other bird.
They have like the least specific needs of any migratory bird.
Yeah.
I'm around the planet, we're good.
I didn't get to see any. I was in Alaska, and I was at Tern Lake, and I didn't see any. I think I was there the wrong time of year. But, huh?
I've been to Alaska 3 times, and I've never seen them.
Yeah.
I maybe saw them, but nobody that was knowledgeable.
Yeah, one of my students last night was telling me that she and her dad go to Alaska every year, and he goes to see the Arctic terns. That's his. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Arctic tern.
Yeah, they're pretty neat birds. And then fallouts. Fallout, this is along the coast. The Boy Scout Woods is this area here. I think it's owned by Audubon Society. Is it the Eastern Audubon Society, I think? Boy Scout Woods. And it's not far from Gallup. High Island is the main place to go. And I think it's closer to Galveston. Yeah. And I've been there a couple times. And it's a cool place anyway, because there's lots, when the birds are migrating north, yeah, so I'm trying to remember what time of year. It's April, they're going north. And so you've got all these birds from South America, Central America, and many of them cross the Gulf to get to North America. And so those little guys fly really high. And they fly high to, why do you think they fly? They fly high in the sky.
There's wind currents.
Less
Wind currents and also less predators.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, and they fly at night. They fly at night really high. And so there's less predators too. And so then when they reach the coast, they kind of hang out for a little while and they feed on the oaks, on the bugs that are on the oaks. They feed for a little while and they get their strength back up, and then they move north to wherever their breeding grounds are. But sometimes there's storms that are pushing south along the Gulf, and when there's a storm pushing south and the birds are heading north, so they just get so exhausted trying to get north because of the storm, and that once they hit the coast, they just fall out. It's like all these birds just, they're all so exhausted, they stay for a long period of time because they're exhausted and they've got to build up their energy again, and that's what's called a fallout. And it usually has to do with a storm, and it's around April is when that happens. And birders go nuts when it's a fallout. And you can't even hardly get a room in a motel down there because they go nuts. And it is really cool because you can walk around and say, oh, there's a couple tanagers and all these different warblers, Cape May warblers. I mean, all these warblers that breed like up in, New York. You'll see. in High Island and those places, and it's very, very exciting. So, and you can, and at Boy Scout Woods, they have these bleachers, and you can just sit down on the bleachers and watch
And
the
you can
birds.
just, it's like watching a movie. You just see the little drip thing and you're just like, there's this and there's that and there's that. And you just chill and eat a snack.
Yeah.
You don't even have to like walk around. And like the rookery, you know, where it's all the, you just sit there in the
Yeah.
blinds.
It's just absolutely amazing. So a birder, it's really a lot of fun to do that if you ever get a chance. Try to get down there during even if you're not there for a major fallout, it's still pretty cool. You can still see a lot of birds. And they're on April. And that movie, it was funny because it had, that movie, A Big Year, they thought, oh, a big fallout. It was like this, it was like a tornado.
That's really crazy.
It looked like a tornado coming in, you know, and these birds were falling out of the tornado, and it's like,
Like Sharknado.
Yes. Tornado.
wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
just
it
the
was ridiculous.
funniest
And it was
thing.
CGI, so you're like, get out. But I think one of the things that's really awesome during Fallout there is that they're so tired that they don't fly away.
They don't care.
So you
Yeah.
just, you'll be like on the boardwalk,
Yeah.
and you'll walk by them, and they're like, whatever, dude, I'm not moving.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Don't the predators out, snatch them up?
Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Oh, okay.
But they're in the trees too most of the time, eating bugs, because that's what they really like those oaks, and they really need those oaks. And one of the problems with the coast, on the coast, is that people have planted a Chinese tallow, and there's a lot of tallow down at the coast. Tallow has an insecticide, a natural insecticide, so there's very little bugs on it. So there's no food for birds. So where the tallow has taken over for the oaks, there's just no food for birds. So one of the big things along the coast is to get rid of the tallow. You know, Chinese tallow. And that's, yeah, because that's been a thing. And plus also when you have these structures out on the coast like oil rigs and such, they'll land on an oil rig and there's no food. You know, and yeah, so if it's a challenge to be a songbird trying to get north, and we keep putting these things in their way. So anyway, yeah, these are our notable Texas migrants. This one here, and you all should know very well, right? The golden cheek warbler. That's what it sounds like. It has a lazy, it sounds like Lazy Daisy. It has two calls, and I only know the one call. I don't remember what the other one is. Yeah, there's an A call and a B call, but that's the one they do, you know, early spring is. And then, this one's my absolute favorite, because I've done a lot of work with this bird. It's a black-cap vireo.
What do they sound? Do their imitation.
You know, I'm not sure, it's more like. And you never can see them. They're in they lie edge habitat. You know, the black-cap vireo, the golden cheek warbler is that they like, you know, the oak, woodland forest, oak forest with a mixture of, you know, of cedar because they use, or juniper because they use the bark for their nests. But they eat the bugs off of the oak, so they have to have a mixture of those two. But the black-cap vireo is an edge species, and it evolved really along the edge of the prairies. So they, you know, they go all the way up into Oklahoma, down into Mexico, the black-cap vireo. So they're edge species. So if you think about it, you know, when the prairies were around, it was that edge where you had shrubbery that was really dense. You know, it went dense all the way down to the ground. It was really thick, and it was constantly maybe being eaten off or burned off, and it was kept really short and dense. So it's the habitat for that bird, the black-cap, is tougher to maintain because it's always in succession, you know, and you have to beat it back, and then, right? When you're maintaining their habitat, it's really difficult. And that's really what it likes. And so it's this really dense shrub, so all you see is this little bird every now and then.
Once you hear it, how do you find it?
Hmm?
Once you hear it,
You just wait and
Just
watch.
wait.
I've heard it, I did never see it.
Yeah, just wait. I have,
It pops up, you just get used to that sound, and you just keep watching, and he'll pop up.
you have to have a lot of patience. I did, one time, this is the weirdest thing that they've ever done. I did black-head berry surveys at Bamberger Ranch for several years. And I had a friend went with me, because he wanted to get a picture of black-head berry, I'd never seen one. You know, it's like, well, we'll see what we can do. And we'd gone to this one area, I knew they were nesting, we didn't go real close to the nesting area, but the male did not want us there. He wanted us away. And he was, you know, singing and you know, and basically talking to us and saying, get away, get away. And he flew up onto the branch and sat there.
Wow,
And
that's unusual.
Whatever.
It was just the weirdest thing. I've never seen one do
That's
that.
so cool.
I was trying once to figure out if I had two or one that was
Oh.
just popping around, but they
Yeah.
were just yakking it
Counter
up.
singing, yeah.
And I was running out of time, and I was like, golly, so this is back in the ancient days when we had the tapes, and I
Oh,
thought,
Like
okay.
Scotch.
Yeah, I played the tape.
Ooh, I'm telling you. I'm just kidding, I'm just
She had
kidding.
And I played it just for, I don't know, maybe 3 seconds. I just wanted to see
Yeah.
if somebody would come up. 'Cause
Yeah.
I could see one pop up, and then I
Yeah.
would see another pop, but I didn't know if it was the same bird, and I couldn't walk through, it was too big.
Yeah.
One popped up right here by my eye. And then the other one I could still hear. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, two.
It is kind of fun when you have two counter singing, because I've had that happen
And I
before.
couldn't, but I could never get them at the same time.
Yeah.
And they were so close, and I was like, is that one or two?
Yeah, their habitat's not that, it's a lot smaller. They're usually about 2 acres rather than the golden cheeks are a little bit bigger
But I
habitat.
think the golden cheek, he just knows he's beautiful, and he just sings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the top of the tree.
And the vireo is just like, it's the worst habitat in the world. You got poison ivy, you got chiggers, you got
Yeah,
mosquitoes,
it's
you got.
real
Yeah, I got
dense.
hit poison ivy 5 times, Bernie.
I've
It's really
seen
dense.
more
Close to the ground for rat
rattlesnakes
snake,
in
easy
vireo
access.
habitat. Also more little crappy sinkhole type things
Yeah,
in vireo habitat. It's always rough.
it's rough habitat,
You
yeah.
can't get through it. And so
Yeah.
he's just like, you can't see me, you can't see me.
Yeah, I think they're really, they're sweet. They're really
They're my
active,
favorite one.
sweet little birds, yeah, I love them. And of course, this is a special, Texas, this is a special bird here. The painted bunting, they're just so beautiful, just absolutely beautiful.
It's the only bird I could identify with the phone.
For the phone, yeah.
I saw a bird. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty gorgeous.
It's like that call, they come in the office, what's that yellow flower blooming on the roadside?
Yeah. Lots of yellow
You
flowers.
stupid government employee, you don't know what's blooming out on your. How tall is it? How big is it?
Oh, they're funny. And this is all the flyways in North America. But in Texas, we're lucky because we actually have 2. This is the central flyway, mostly going through Texas. And then here's the Mississippi, but part of that kind of comes through too, so. So we got a lot happening in Texas. And then this is the migration routes. Remember I told you that those warblers, when they come through, they circumvent the coast, you know, they trans-Gulf route, where they go right across the Gulf, and that's when they're exhausted when they reach. And then some of them actually will circumvent and come all the way around to go up. So it's fun to go to Central and South America and actually see all these birds that live in Texas, that you see in
That's
Texas.
weird, right?
Yeah, it is. So a little bit about their ecology. All animals are limited by habitat, climate, food, and water, all. So, even us, even us. Of course, yeah. So, I mean, and the habit, of course, habitat depends on the species. They all have different requirements, you know, like the black-cap vireo with that edge habitat. And the interesting, I'll be talking about the brown-headed cowbirds in a minute soon. I think they're coming up. But, yeah, I'll wait till they come up to talk about that. So habitat, climate, you know, it just depends on the species. You can pretty much tell if you're in East Texas and it's moist and you're in, that you're gonna get prothonotary warblers, you know, in moist habitat, or, you know, you can pretty much figure out what species are where by the habitat. And so they, yeah, that's all they. And then pressures up from the environment or competition, mainly competition for nest sites. The male with the best territory is going to get the, you know, the females first, or lots of females, depending on whether or not they are, if they polyandrous or is polyandrous or
That's what polygamy is the.
yeah, is the male, polyandrous is the female.
No,
Yeah,
polygamy, gam is female,
polygamous.
so polygamist is a.
Yeah, like the egret, or the, no, the blackbirds, the grackles, the great-tailed grackles, they're polygynous, no. Yeah, no.
One male, multiple females?
Yeah, one male, multiple females, and they have to pick a really good site, and then the better the site, the more females are going to live in his little colony. You know?
HEB parking lot.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the thing, actually, that is only the roosting. In the wintertime, that's where they roost. In the summertime when they breed, they don't breed. That's not.
The HEB parking lot?
Uh-uh.
They got a Walmart.
Where do they?
They like prairie, open, moist, wetland habitat is where you're gonna find them breeding. And they only come in, and they're not there now. If you go out there and look, you will not see them in big numbers now. The funny thing is people have really funny memories. So it's like, you know, the grackles would be really thick in the wintertime and they're like, they're always here, but they're not. They are not here, they are not there in the summertime.
Where do they all go?
They spread out. See, they all come together during the non-breeding season for protection. And so they're coming and roosting in these sites where that they like having it all open underneath so they can tell when a predator is coming. So those parking lots with no shrubbery is the perfect habitat. So we make the perfect habitat for them. If we put shrubs, dense shrubbery all the way up, they wouldn't roost there. If you change the habitat, they wouldn't go there. Yeah, so it's what we do.
It's the
Always.
males that do that little, they puff up and then do that little dance.
Yeah.
I love that, that cracks me
And
up.
They're pretty. I think they're pretty.
I think they're really cool. That was the first bird when I moved to Texas in '81. And, you know, I'm used to common grackles up in Illinois, you know, but I'd never seen a gray-tailed grackle. And, you know, I moved into the house and I'm hearing this, it's like, what is that?
Sounds like a buzzsaw.
Going outside,
It
it's
sounds like a
like,
sci-fi sound, you're like.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a robot.
It's amazing.
yeah, it doesn't sound like a bird at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a recording.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
Of like
kind of
something
weird
happening.
thing they do.
Yeah.
And then they have to do this thing that sounds like, here's Johnny. And that's what I always sound, I hear, they do something that sounds just like that, you know, Johnny Carson.
You're dating yourself.
I know, I'm retiring. There's a reason why I'm retiring.
We gotta update that, yeah.
Wish she didn't say Jack Parr.
Yeah, I remember him too.
Yeah.
I remember him. I was younger, but I remember him. So anyway, yeah, so nesting sites are important, nesting materials, you know, they compete for that, and I mean, they'll pick up all kinds of stuff. You have to be really careful, like, you know, fishermen leave their fishing line out, and I had some barn swallows nesting in my porch, you know, and one time they like white stuff. They like to use white stuff for their nests, and they got a hold of some fishing line. I didn't realize it, and all the babies died. They all got hung up on that fishing line and fell out and died. It was so horrible. So, so if you fish, don't throw it. Make sure you take care of where you put your fishing line. You know, competition for mates, of course. You know, and birds are really cute because the males are, in most cases, the males are the prettiest. You know, they have to show off to get the females. The females are the ones who pick. And the prettiest male usually, or with the longest, even the longest tail, you know, the male with the longest tail, she'll pick him. When you think about it, if a male has a very long tail, you have to be pretty tough to survive with that long tail to keep from being killed by predators. So you have to be pretty tough. And then territories we talked about earlier. So then you've got, well, predation. The mobbing is where you get a whole bunch of birds going after a bird, any sort of bird of prey or bird that might be feeding on babies. Like you'll see birds go after crows, because crows will sometimes eat baby birds, and so they will just totally mob these big species and keep them from killing their babies. One time I was up in Dallas and I was driving, and this crow flew right in front of my car with a mockingbird in its mouth. Right, and there was a whole flock of mockingbirds behind it. Trying to save its friend. And I'm in the car, and it's like, oh my God, I wish I'd see what happens. They were definitely mobbing that bird. Ray, let me have back my baby, my brother or sister or whatever. And so nobody around them, no, didn't seem like anybody else saw that but me. Then they have they can make alarm calls, and the reason I put this picture here, it's a Carolina wren. One summer in between, was it graduate school? I think it was in graduate school, and I wanted a job to make some extra money while in between in the summertime. And a friend of mine said, well, you know, they need help with doing bird banding. So I did some bird banding out at Camp Swift. And, you know, we got there early in the morning and set up, you know, I was in pretty good shape that summer because we were running from net to net to net to net, you know, and you know, checking for birds in the nets, and so this one Carolina wren kept getting caught in the net periodically, you know, and we'd band them, you know, and we'd weigh them, band them, and check their age and all that kind of stuff, put all that information down, and then release them. And so I think she got smart enough that, you know, like we put the net up one morning, and we come around, and here she is sitting on the tree going, that's their warnings call. It's like, stay away, danger. You know, after like a week or two of doing this, you know, she caught on, and it's like, she kept a lot of birds away from that. So they have their alarm calls that they use, and displays, of course. Displays are, this is a, oh gosh, what is it? It's getting late and my brain's
Prairie chicken?
It's a killdeer.
No, it's a killdeer.
It's a killdeer.
Yeah, it's a killdeer.
I've never noticed that.
I think the way it looks.
Orange.
I don't know about the orange there. I know, me neither. But it's it might be one of the others.
Yeah, it's that special fancy pants killdeer. I forget his name.
Yeah. Anyway, this is a behavior, you know, that to act like they've got a broken wing to keep you away from the nest. You know, and then of course the prairie chickens, you know, do their little Indian dances, and the Indians actually mimic their dances by the prairie chickens. And so they,
That's awesome.
yeah, the prairie chickens are really cool, because when they display, they're like, moo, moo. The Atwater's prairie chicken, has anyone ever gone to see Atwater's? You can go to the preserve at Atwater's prairie chicken, and preserve.
Refuge.
Refuge. Refuge, yes. You go to the, I've been there many times, I never remember the name. But anyway, that you can go and sign up to go see them boom, and it's really fun.
When is it? Like what?
It's usually it's in April.
Yeah.
It's like the second weekend usually in
That's
April.
like near Columbus, right?
Yeah, you could, yeah. Yeah, you could call them up and find out, you know, when it is, and.
It's at Eagle, is it Eagle, Eagle Town, Eagle Lake?
Eagle Lake? Eagle Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have this really deep boom, it's like boom. The males will all run around and boom, boom. They've got that, you know, that's a dewlap, right? Or
That's probably a Gular pouch.
Gular pack, yeah, you got a Gular pouch that they go boom, boom, and it's deep. And then that attracts the females. I get to see the lesser prairie chickens up in the Panhandle several years ago, and they're like, woo! Lesser, so they got the woo, woo. And you know, I used to get really irritated when I'd hear young men with their cars going boom, boom, boom. And now when I hear it, all I think it's a young male, he's displaying for other males or females. And that's what they're doing. This is exactly what they're doing.
Grasslands in Oklahoma and Kansas, and that's got the graders.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard those many years ago. But
Yeah.
I don't remember it in context of volume.
And I think it's very similar to the Atwaters, because Atwaters is a subspecies of the grader.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's more like the Atwaters, but
I've never heard lessers.
yeah, lessers were pretty cool. Way up north in the Panhandle, it was really cool. But yeah, if you get a chance to do that too. That was an ecotourism thing I got to do. So those are displays, and then of course flocking. And this is a picture of the purple martins, and they get together and roost in July, August, something like that. And around, has anyone gone to that? Yeah, I think it was end of July.
July.
I think it's in July, yeah.
Yeah, and of course the roost keeps changing, so you have to find out where it's going to be. Yeah. And they'll just, thousands and thousands of these purple martins come, and they're just kind of hanging out, and they're resting before they take off, you know, for their wintering grounds. But it's really kind of a fun thing to do. Travis Audubon keeps track of where they are, and they always have, you know, stuff happening out there for purple martins. And then you have the colonial cavity or colonial nesters, and there's quite a few of those. This is the red-cockaded woodpecker, and they nest in East Texas in the piney woods. They like the longleaf pine. They like the really old longleaf pine that has the heartwood in the middle has sort of died out, so that they can, you know, make a nest in there in the heartwood. And so a lot of those trees are gone now, so they've made nests for them, you know, made nests that they can use, and they attach those to trees. But it's really kind of cool because they take, this here is sap. So what they do is they peck the wood enough so that the sap flows, so that snakes can't get up into it. They get stuck.
What?
Yeah, they can't crawl up into it because it's real sticky.
It seems like it's really irritating to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really, really cool. Red cockaded woodpeckers are little tiny they're not very big woodpeckers, not much bigger than a downy. About the same size as a downy. And
Can you get them confused? The downy
I don't know, they're quite different. And the habitat, it's like really specific habitat.
And
You
their
have to
social
go.
structure's totally different too. Like
Yeah.
females leave the colony and start theoretically a new colony, and they have helper birds, and it's
It's a whole interesting,
totally different.
yeah, it's all interesting. And plus they're so high up. I went to see them, and I went to school at A&M, and of course while I was there, I joined their Audubon Society. And I go birding with them every now and then, you know, and we went to one of the forests to see them, I can't remember which one it was now. And, you know, it hurts your neck to go see these birds, because they're up at the top of these trees. So you're going, okay, I'm looking for gold. After a while, your neck gets really sore because you're looking like this the whole time. Because they're way high up in the trees. But they're one of the first endangered, they were the first bird to go on the endangered species list.
I think so, and nobody knew
1970.
anything about them. It was startling, the
Yeah,
deficit of biological knowledge on that bird.
yeah,
They had the Forest Service at first, they told them, just don't cut down their cavity trees, so there'd be like a big 40-acre block with just cavity trees and no other trees. Everything was cleared out.
oh, that's
all
not their
around.
habitat. Yeah,
And to
yeah.
find out, they had little cavity areas, and
And then they have other
and
places.
then they had areas that they would feed in, and nobody knew what they were feeding in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
it was
little
just-
known about them. When I went to A&M, I had a plan when I went to A&M, because I studied wildlife, and I got through within a year and a half. I was crazy, I took a lot of classes. And they were all wildlife classes. And so what I did was, every report I ever did was on red-cockaded woodpecker. And I just collected all these articles
You
and,
had some by Jerome Jackson then.
huh?
You had some by Jerome Jackson.
Jerome Jackson, and I got to know Ricky Maxey, and, you know, all these other people that I later got to know at Parks and Wildlife, you know, but every report I ever did at A&M was on red-cockaded woodpeckers. Every report, technical writing, red-cockaded woodpeckers, so it worked out pretty well.
Are they doing okay? I don't even.
I don't know what's happened after the hurricane. Yeah, I don't know.
They seem to be holding their own.
They seem to be. They have really distinct habitat. You know, it's really difficult when you have a species that has habitat that's so specific, you know, but, yeah. And then habitat alterations, you know, urbanization, that's the main thing with the golden cheek warbler. You know, this is its habitat, and we're moving into their habitat. And if the comptroller has its way, we'll move in even more so. Because they're trying to get them off the endangered species list, which I work for Parks and Wildlife, so I'm not supposed to say anything. So that's it. I'm not going to say anything more. But I'll tell you a lot when I retire.
Very diplomatically put.
So this is golden cheek warbler habitat here, you know, with a mixture of the oaks and the cypress or ash juniper. And then here is black-capped vireo habitat. They like sort of a mixture of these thick shrubby things and open little spots of open grasslands too. So that's black-capped vireo. And then food, this here is an acorn woodpecker that you could, if you go out to Big Bend, you get to see an acorn woodpecker. And when they call, they sound like they're saying, Jacob, Jacob, Jacob. That's an acorn woodpecker. And they do, they take acorns and they stuff them into trees, and that's where they save them for eating later, you know, which is really kind of cool. This bird here is a loggerhead shrike, which we have around here, and I think I talked about loggerhead shrikes last week, because I had one that tried to kill a house bear in my backyard. But they're called the butcher bird is another common name for them. And then how do they control the temperature? They don't sweat like we do, and so they have to pant whenever it's hot. So you'll see them just kind of out and they're panting just to try to cool off. Or they find cool places to go, but that's how they. And in cold conditions, they huddle pretty close together or puff up, so they have some the warmth around their body, but they find cover or they huddle, or they migrate. And then just various interactions. Birds are big pollinators, very important pollinators. And here's the brood parasites. This is the brown-headed cowbird. And, well, I'll go through the rest of them, and then I'll go back to that one, because that's one of the, I have a big story on that one. So seed dispersers, these are mockingbirds. These are chili pequins, and they love to eat chili pequins. So you find them growing along fence rows, because they'll eat the seeds and they'll poop them on the fence row, and then you get chili pequins all over the place. You can eat them. Yeah. And then, of course, here is, predators. This is a, I don't know what kind of hawk that is. Anyway, this is the predation. They're predators. And, okay, back to my brown-headed cowbird. I think the cowbird should be named the bison bird. I think cowbird is a bad name for that bird. It actually evolved with the bison, and we give it a bad rap because we changed its habitat, we changed its environment. What it did was, the interesting thing about the brown-headed cowbird is they don't have their own nests. They lay their eggs in other birds' nests, and other birds raise them. And so back during the day when the bison moved through the Great Plains, they moved with the bison. So when the bison moved, because they would just follow them and eat the bugs that came up from the ground as they were walking, and they would affect the birds that were. They'd lay their eggs in nests of birds that were in the edge habitat right along the prairies, and so those are the only birds that really were affected, and it was over short periods of time because they moved on. So they weren't constantly being hammered, those birds. And so that's how they, they learned to follow the bison and just lay their eggs and have other birds. And I thought it was fascinating because many birds have what's called imprinting, where when they're hatched, they imprint on their parent. Well, brown-headed cowbirds don't imprint. They know they're a brown-headed cowbird, and they go find other brown-headed cowbirds after they grow up, which is interesting.
I have read a paper on that.
Yeah?
And they asked that same question, because the Fish and Wildlife Service took millions of dollars with, whooping crane, no.
Oh, yes, I know that one, yeah.
Well, it said that the cowbirds really they'll imprint, but they'll go up to any bird.
Oh,
they'll do their little thing, and finally a cowbird female will go, oh, you are pretty cute. And it's really just kind of luck of the draw, is what this one paper said.
Yeah.
That they just luck into another cowbird rather than that they actually search out a cowbird.
Yeah.
Which kind of made more sense.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, how do they do that when
Yeah.
every other bird
imprints
and gets confused?
Yeah. Yeah, so
But that was just one paper.
yeah, I feel bad for the bird because I think it's being a cowbird, it's just being a cowbird.
It's an evolutionary
and so,
success.
What we did was we took the bison and put them in pastures, turned them into cows, took away the bison, and we got cows. The cows don't migrate, so the birds don't migrate, and the birds, they were originally only affecting those edge species like the black-cap vireo. Black-cap vireos will, if there is a cowbird egg in the nest, it will put another nest over it. It'll nest again.
What will?
a black-capped vireo.
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Well, maybe,
yeah,
in
'cause
the
they're,
refuge, they don't.
but they will only do it once.
We've never found that. And we've
Okay.
had graduate students out there, I know other birds will do that, or just
Yeah.
abandon, but we've never had evidence of that.
That I've read that the black-capped vireo did that because it's an edge
That
species
must be
and,
new.
and so does like the yellow warbler.
I know the yellow warbler does.
Will
it.
do that too, and yeah, so this is, birds that have evolved around the cowbird had
Well, we never
ways of
figured
getting
that out
around
either.
it.
We couldn't figure that out, why they didn't evolve to do that.
Yeah, either that or they leave that nest and they start a new nest. But they
Because
only
our
do it,
graduate students would report so much parasitism
yeah,
if we didn't track.
huh.
Huh, I'll have to check in, we'll talk afterwards, that's interesting.
That's what I read. But anyway, that these edge species learned a ways of getting around it. But now that the cowbird is not moving away, they're getting hammered with it. So they still have a problem with the cowbirds now. Because, they maybe one time will leave a nest or one time, leave their eggs. But they over and over and over again, it doesn't work.
I guess surmise that because the buffalo or the bison moved,
Yeah.
the cowbird or the vireos never had to adapt to that. Because they would come through and then move, and then maybe 5 years,
Yeah.
they'd come through again and hit that same colony, or the colony wouldn't even be there.
Yeah, and it'd be only like one egg every so many years, It wasn't like,
They didn't have to really adapt to that.
they weren't hammered with it like they are now. I mean, now
So
they're
they
hammered
really
with
haven't
it.
had time to evolve with it.
Yeah. And what we also did was we cleared out the woods. So the forest, so now the cowbirds are going deeper into the woods and they're affecting other
Yeah.
birds that were never, ever affected before, like the golden sheep warblers, and other
Because I know at
warblers and such.
Kerr, Bob, not Armstrong, he used to be the manager out there at Kerr. He said that when they started trapping cowbirds, not only did their vireos do better, but he said they had more of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because it affected, because we thinned out the woods.
What happens after you trap them?
Oh, they kill them.
I don't know.
They usually kind of pop their heads.
And a very
Break their
humane
skulls.
Like
man.
with their hands?
Mhm.
It's called a cervical dislocation.
Yeah, it's like,
Just like with the chicken.
That's
It's easier, way easier.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, my God, whoops.
Or like dove hunting, if it's not dead.
It's just
Yeah.
quick, very quick.
Yeah, I don't think I could do it.
I don't think I could
I
either.
could shoot a cowbird, but I couldn't just like.
I mean,
You gotta make a shot.
but it's like you hold it and you flick it, right?
No, you just pick them up.
Back it up.
I always had a concrete block out there, and I just went whack, whack.
Oh,
I could do
There's
it
so many
faster.
though in those.
well, they're in that, and they're catching them.
Yeah, but you have to kill all those by hand? That is crazy, it's a lot.
Death does not bother me. Pain and suffering bothers me, so.
Well, are they suffering?
No.
No, I did it
No,
as
it's fast.
quickly and painlessly as I could. I had killed literally, I don't want to say thousands, but it's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We used to recycle them to animal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for food.
Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
had the West Nile.
Like Sally?
thing, and
Oh.
because
Yeah.
they're a blackbird.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was surprised I missed your question about when the crows went down.
Oh, yeah,
Because
the,
we lost a
West
lot of
Nile,
our
yeah.
rehabbers then.
so, yeah, just identifying birds, I think I even kind of mentioned this, join an Audubon Society, equipment, binoculars. You don't have to have the best binoculars, you don't have to go out and buy the most
That
expensive.
Which ones do you use?
That you will.
We have.
My personal ones are Swift Audubons.
Really?
I have Swift Audubons, but my work ones are Swarovskis.
Of course they are. I knew it. That's heavy.
No, they're not bad, but they're beautiful, but they're real expensive,
I
so
know,
I'm
I
never
know.
personally gonna own a pair of Swarovskis. I only have them because I have for work. But Swift Audubons were a pretty good You know, what I did was, when I first started birding, I went out, like on Christmas bird counts and stuff, and I had a cheap pair, and then I would talk to people and ask them what they liked. You know, and try to find a pair that I can afford, and you know, you try theirs out and see what I liked, and Swift Audubon was what, and I've had them for like 30 years. So they've been a pretty decent pair of, they've been repaired a couple times, but yeah. Well, anyway, I like them. But, and what was the binocular place that's real pop, Eagle Optics? They're going out of business.
What?
Yes. Yeah, Eagle
That's
Optics.
crazy.
I don't know. They're like so popular.
They're more known for their scopes, aren't they?
A lot of people get their binoculars there too. Then, you know, equipment, bird guides are good. I really like the National Audubon one. That's one of my favorite bird guides. Sibley's is nice, but it's huge. But yeah, yeah, Sibley's good, but it's too big. But I like the National. I like the
National Geographic, because I like it when I don't have to look around for
Yeah.
I like the range map and the text
Like it all
and the
there.
picture right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then field marks you really need to learn if you're going out. You know, field marks are like golden slippers. You know, these are the little things, because if people go, oh, what color is the great blue heron's legs? It's like, it's not a field mark, so I don't really know. I know now it's green because everybody keeps asking me, but and then, you know, here, that's red-tailed hawk with the tagio marks. And then here is, this one is kind of, is hard because it's a little kinglet, and
I've never
it's a
seen that.
red crown
I've seen
kinglet.
one.
Not the red crown like that.
They only do the red crown when they're really, really mad. And you have to get them really, really mad to do that, otherwise you don't see it. But they have a little broken eye ring, they have double little wing bars, and they're flitting around in the tree. And they always, when they're calling, they sound like little machine guns, like. So that's, you can always tell that's a ruby crowned kinglet. And then bird songs are, you know, how do they, I'm gonna go through this quick because we're, last time I was early and this time I'm running later. So, yeah, so, you know, how do birds make noises? Well, this is just to show you the between, we have a larynx, they have a syrinx. The syrinx is interesting because it has two different parts, and so they're able to make more than one sound at the same time. So that's what makes it them, you know, able to do that. So why do they sing? There's lots of reasons why. You know, to impress and attract a mate is a big one. And I love spring around my house because I can hear the little cardinals outside. And it's almost like they're practicing, because they'll be like, do 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 do, or they'll go do 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 do. It's almost like they're practicing. So yeah, and attract a mate. Territories, declared territories, especially with those black-cap vireos that were counter singing, because they were saying, this is my territory, don't you come into my territory. To identify family members, like the geese and the cranes, they'll be calling back and forth to each other, you know, especially family members will call back and forth to each other as they're migrating, and announce the presence of a predator, like the little Carolina wren, you know, like, be careful, there's a net here, you don't want to fly into it. You know, or that, you know, if there's an owl in the area, birds will start just going crazy. Some birders use owl calls to attract birds, and that's how it works. It's because when there's an owl in the area, other birds are like, get that owl out of here. You know?
The eastern screech owl.
And that's what they use, and don't use it during breeding season.
Yeah.
That's the only time you don't want to do that, because what happens is, you know, the birds may be setting up their breeding territory and they hear an owl and they might move, you know, so it's best not to do that during breeding season. And, yeah, or just information about food. And so, what sounds do birds make? So birding by ear is really the best way to learn how to bird. Bird songs are limited to the passerformes, the perching birds. And males sing for two reasons, territory and mates. And actually, woodpeckers, the drumming is also a sound. So like when people complain about like a woodpecker going up and drumming on like metal, on their, flashing on their chimney or something, and that is, they try to find the loudest place they can actually find because they're actually drumming for a mate. It's not, they're not trying to get bugs out of that, they're trying to drum for a mate, and they have specific cadence to their drum, depending on the species. And then also there's other birds that, Wilson snipes, they make this winnowy sort of noise with their wings and their tail feathers when they're in display, portrait display. And there are snipes. You can't have a snipe hunt. So, like, what is that bird deep in the woods? Oftentimes when you're birding, this is what it looks like. You're going through here and it is so dense, you can't see a thing. Arkansas is the hardest place to bird because it's so dense and the birds are so high. So once you learn how to bird by ear, you can pick up what's around, just by what you hear. And really can make a big difference. And so birding by ears, so learn bird songs and calls. It opens up a whole new world of birding. This is that bird I told you about last week, so I guess this is the Inca dove. That should be called the Aztec dove. But the one that says, no, that's the little Inca. They're sweet. So the tips are, when we're out in the field and you see a bird singing, if you put your binoculars on the bird and you look at it, you watch it singing and you hear the sound, so you put the bird and the sound together, that kind of helps to get your brain and the sound going there. And then, learning about experts, this really helps. You go in the field with experts as much as possible. You can listen to recordings on your phone even these days. And mnemonics is like one of the easiest ways to learn, is to come up with different phrases that go with the bird. Like with the black-cap vireo, it's and it says lazy daisy, lazy daisy. That's one way of remembering it. And then some of the others, like like owl, like a barred owl, which is probably, you've got barred owls out here, I'm sure. And they have this, who cooks for you? Oh. So that's the barred owl. And the who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. And the great horned owl is who's awake? Me too. Who's awake? Me too. And it's the easier way to remember, so when you hear that owl, it's like, which one? Is it who cooks for you or is it who's awake? So that's how you can, figure out. That's easy. And then some of them make their own names, like the Eastern Phoebe goes, Phoebe, Phoebe. And the chachalaka, chachalaka, chachalaka. And so anyway, there's just remembering all those little mnemonics that can help with some species. And there's a lot of them, like there's a lot of beer for some reason in bird sounds. There's like the white-eyed vireo is pick up the beer, check. Pick up the beer, check. And it doesn't always sound like pick up the beer. It might be pick up the beer, check. But it always has check at the end. And so there's another beer one too. It's it's not a common one around here, which I can't think of the name of it. It's like, pick 3 beers. What is that then? I can't remember right off the bat. So anyway, so you can break the song apart into its different qualities. So there's different ways of looking at birding but birding by ear is really the next step once you get out there and learn more about birds, is to then, learn birds by ear, and you'll open up your world is so much. When you're doing a Christmas bird count, all the birds that you see and the birds that you hear are counted. So, so it's really, I had the bird by ear for my master's thesis, because that's what I did. I did point counts, and so I had them set up where I went to each point, and I stood there for 5 minutes, and I counted all the birds that I heard and I saw at that point, and then I went to the next point, and we had 10 points. Anyway, so this is a great website, all about birds. I use it all the time. If you're interested, you can always plug birds in there and try to figure out. And this is probably where you got class, right?
Yeah, and it connects to eBird for whatever bird you find. It
Uh-huh.
has the eBird map. You can connect to it on that website.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so play around with the website. This is a great one. At Cornell's Lab of
And
Ornithology.
they have live cams, and you can watch birds all day long on your computer.
Cool. And then monitoring, Christmas bird counts, breeding bird surveys. I talked about that last week. There's the Great Texas, the birding classic that Parks and Wildlife does every year. That's a competition. It's a big competition that people do. There's all these different little things you can do along with it. You can do a backyard bird count along with it, or you can be on a team and spend a whole week just counting birds, or it gets pretty crazy and competitive. Point counts and transects is what you do when you do studies, and that's what I did for my master's thesis. And then, of course, bird banding is going on too, which is kind of fun. Oh, this is the USGS bird banding laboratory. This is where who I went through when I did bird banding. And the database is approximately 64.5 million banding records. And it was really interesting to do that, to try it out, except for some birds really hurt when they bit you. You had to be really careful with cardinals. They have really big beaks. And we use this pile guide. I don't know if you ever it's called the pile guide, and it tells you which species, which size band to use on which species and all that. It's this big guide, and we borrowed it, of course, and it was, there was one bird, the grosbeak. It was the rose-breasted grosbeak. There was some cuss words in there. For the grosbeak, so I guess that person really hated those birds. Yeah, that would really hurt. eBird, of course, talked about that last week. And conservation concerns, like Parks and Wildlife, we have the TXMN. We have 111 species of greater conservation need on that list. Lots and lots of birds. Many of them are associated with endangered habitat like prairies. So a lot of those species are prairie species, because prairies are our most endangered ecosystem in probably in North America is prairies. So a lot of those birds are associated with prairies. And yeah. And the watch list for birds for conservation concern is the American Bird Conservancy. Nature trackers, we have projects. Hooper Watch is one, so we're going to be watching for hoopers real soon. They'll be down here pretty soon in the next few weeks and coming through. And when they fly through, the sandhills are going to be thousands or hundreds will be flying together in V formation. You'll see hundreds of them flying over. It's amazing when they do. I love hearing them. The hoopers are in small groups, so you're never going to see them in those big, large numbers. They're going to be in smaller family numbers. If you do see a whooping crane family, they're going to be in smaller numbers usually. So these are the bird projects at Nature Trackers. We've got a red crown parrot project down the valley that people are doing. Red crown parrot's kind of an interesting one because it was a pet bird for a while, but it's also native to Mexico, and it's come up on its own into South Texas, and so they're roosting there. So it's now an SGCN species. So there's a project down there to map out their roosting sites. And these are resources on Parks and Wildlife. You can go to all these booklets are in Parks and Wildlife And one of my favorites is the warblers of Texas. And that one, whenever spring comes, I always have to go to that book because it's got like a couple pages of mnemonics for the warblers and
Oh,
vireos.
that's cool.
Yeah, and that's really
Is that
fun.
a new one?
No, it's been around for a while. Cliff Shackelford did it a long time ago, but, yeah, and here, guess who this is? That's me! This is Cliff Shackelford, he's our ornithologist from Parks and Wildlife. That was fun. We were actually doing a birding classic. So anyway, there's lots of things on the website. All right, I finished before 9:30. There's the bird, that's the sandhill crane, that's the one that got it all started.
I like that's my favorite, because I can always identify that.
Yeah.
And call.
Oh, I love that. They have the most, it's ancient. They have this guttural ancient call that just, every time I hear it, it just, I don't know, it just gives me chills. They are amazing birds.
What's the best place to see birds in northern Texas? Sandhill.
Mule shoot is supposed to be the best place to go, and I'm not sure when, but I've got to get there, because I haven't been